The battle begins. Anand opens with pawn to d4, and Carlsen responds with knight f6, signaling the start of an Indian defense. Anand continues with pawn to c4, establishing central control. Carlsen answers with pawn to e6, keeping his options flexible. Knight c3 develops white's pieces naturally. Black responds with bishop b4, the signature move of the Nimzo-Indian defense, pinning the knight to the king. Pawn f3, the same-ish variation. Anand immediately signals aggressive intentions, preparing to build a massive pawn center with e4. This somewhat weakens his kingside, but he's betting on overwhelming central control. The more popular move would be queen c2 or knight f3, developing pieces first, but Anand wants space and power. Carlsen responds with pawn to d5, striking at the center immediately. Pawn a3 forces the bishop's hand. Black takes on c3 check, and white recaptures with the b-pawn, accepting doubled pawns for the bishop pair. Carlsen pushes pawn to c5, immediately challenging white's center. Anand captures on d5 with the c-pawn, and black recaptures with the e-pawn. The center crystallizes. Anand plays pawn e3, and Carlsen responds with pawn to c4, a strategic advance that clamps down on white's queenside and limits the bishop on f1. Knight e2 develops white's final minor piece. Carlsen brings out knight c6, increasing his control over the center. Pawn g4, a stunning declaration of intent from the reigning world champion. Anand launches a direct kingside pawn storm before completing development, gambling everything on a mating attack. This is the most aggressive possible move in this position. Most players would castle first or develop with bishop g2, prioritizing king safety. Carlsen calmly castles kingside, accepting the challenge and trusting in his defensive resources. Bishop g2 completes white's kingside development. Black plays knight f5, rerouting the knight toward the queenside where it can pressure white's structure. Anand castles kingside, finally getting his king to relative safety. Carlsen's knight hops to b3, a strong outpost attacking the rook and the light-squared bishop. Rook a2, an unusual but necessary move to protect the second rank and keep the rook active. Moving the rook to b1 would trap it behind the a-pawn, and moving the bishop would lose material to the knight fork. This awkward-looking move is actually the most practical solution to keep everything defended. Carlsen advances pawn to b5, starting a pawn avalanche on the queenside that will become a race between white's kingside attack and black's queenside counterplay. Knight g3 repositions the knight toward the kingside attack. Black continues with pawn f5, expanding further on the queenside. Pawn g5 advances the kingside storm, forcing black's knight backward. The knight retreats to e8, regrouping for defense. Pawn e4, Anand finally achieves his dream central break, gaining space in the center and preparing to advance the f-pawn with devastating effect. This push supports the kingside attack, while the e5 square becomes a perfect outpost. The alternative pawn f4 would be more immediate but less flexible, committing the structure prematurely. Carlsen responds with knight takes c1, capturing the light-squared bishop and removing a key attacking piece. Queen takes c1, and black's rook swings to a6, a creative defensive resource that prepares to defend along the 6th rank. Pawn e5 advances further, cramping black's position. Knight c7 reroutes toward a better defensive post. Pawn f4, the pawn storm intensifies. Anand is now just 2 moves away from f6, which would blow open black's kingside. This advance supports a future f5-f6 break that could be lethal. The immediate pawn f5 was tempting to arrive faster, but this methodical approach maintains maximum flexibility. Carlsen counters with pawn b4, racing his queenside pawns forward in a desperate bid to create counterplay before white's attack crashes through. White takes on b4, and black recaptures with the a-pawn. Both sides are executing their respective plans. Rook takes a6, eliminating black's defensive rook. Knight takes a6, and now the race is on. Pawn f5, the breakthrough Anand has been preparing. This pawn is now 1 square away from f6, where it will rip apart black's king shelter. The immediate queen f4 would be less forcing, and give black more time to organize defense. Carlsen pushes pawn b3, his passed pawn now just 2 squares from promotion. It's a knife edge. Who will deliver checkmate first? Queen f4 joins the kingside attack, targeting the weakened dark squares around black's king. Knight c7 defends, preparing to block on e8 if needed. Pawn f6. The battering ram crashes into black's kingside fortress. This pawn on f6 is like a dagger pointed at g7 and h7, threatening to rip open the king's shelter entirely. Now white threatens queen h4, followed by queen h6 or queen h7 checkmate. Black's king is in mortal danger, but Carlsen coolly pushes pawn g6, creating an escape square on g7 and blocking some of white's most immediate threats. Yet the position remains incredibly dangerous for black. Queen h4 shifts to the h-file, eyeing the weakened dark squares. Knight e8 blocks the back rank, preparing a final defensive stand. Queen h6. The queen lands on the critical h6 square, threatening checkmate on h7 and h8. This looks absolutely crushing. White's attack appears to be just one move away from victory. Black cannot defend the 7 square adequately, and checkmate seems inevitable. But Carlsen finds an incredible resource, pawn b2. The passed pawn is now just 1 square from promoting to a queen. White must deal with this immediate threat, and suddenly the tables turn. What looked like a certain mating attack for Anand becomes a desperate race against black's promotion. Rook f4 Anand brings the rook into the attack, preparing to swing to h4 for checkmate. The rook on f4 also defends the back rank after black promotes. This looks like the final hammer blow, but notice the position carefully. Anand's knight on g3 is pinned by the pawn on b2. The knight cannot move without allowing black to promote with check. Carlsen promotes with check. Pawn b1 becomes a queen with check. This forces white's response. Knight f1 blocks the check, but now comes the stunning finale. Queen e1. The newly promoted queen delivers a quiet but absolutely lethal move. This move attacks the knight on f1 and threatens queen f2 checkmate, which cannot be stopped. White's rook and queen are both committed to the kingside and cannot return to defend in time. If white tries rook f1, black simply takes the rook with checkmate. If white tries any other move, queen f2 is unstoppable checkmate. Anand has no defense. He resigned immediately, an absolutely breathtaking finish to a dramatic game. After queen e1, Anand resigned. There is no defense to the threat of queen f2 checkmate. If rook f1, then queen takes f1 is checkmate. If queen g5, then queen f2 is still checkmate. White's pieces are too far from the defense, and his own advanced pawns block any retreat. This incredible game showcased both players' fighting spirit. Anand's ultra-aggressive kingside pawn storm nearly succeeded, but Carlsen's nerves of steel and brilliant calculation in the final moments turned certain defeat into stunning victory. This win was crucial in Carlsen's march to becoming world champion, dethroning the great Viswanathan Anand, a true masterpiece of modern chess.